Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back. In this episode we're going to be adding unlockable doors, and we're going to be adding walls, things like that. And then we're going to create a prompt that pops up, and when you tap on that it will unlock the door. So let's just get to it. Alright guys, so the first thing we need to do is head over to your layout, your game layout, and we just need to make sure, so this grid size, we want this to match the size of the wall. So for example, we could have that to be like 128 by 128, or 256 by 256, depending on how big you want the wall to be. Next, let's first add the wall object. So we're going to right click, insert an object, 3D shape, and this is going to be our wall. I'll just call this wall. We want to give it a solid behavior, so right click, behaviors, solid. We don't need the height to be as tall, we could just set that to 10 maybe. That's completely up to you if you want to be able to see over the walls, or if you want them, you can make them really tall if you don't want to be able to see past them. Next we can now just select our game layer, and we can use show grid and snap to grid. And now we can use this to actually snap our pieces. One thing you can do is if you enter your actual wall and you go to origin, if we right click and we quick assign, if we assign this to the bottom left, this will snap properly on the corners, so as you can see it aligns better with the grid now. And also just make sure it matches the size of your grid, so 128 by 128. So once you've done this, you can then use this how you'd like, so you could use this to create your walls. So you can just hold control and just drag these out. Alright guys, so I've just pasted this out a little bit to just create a template room. And we've got spaces here on the left and right just for some doors. Again, design this how you'd like, but for now this is just for an example. Alright, so next to texture this wall, it's up to you whether so what you could do is you could just select this and you can just fill these faces in. So you could just have it the same face for each. Alternatively, you could then use sprites, and what you could do is, so you could have different sprites and you could randomize through them so that each wall has a slight variant. So that's just if you want to add some variety to your walls. Let's say you had different bricks, some with cracks and things like that. So to do this, all we need to do is we insert new objects. We're going to add a sprite. And then for now, I've just used this texture here. And I've set the canvas to 256 by 256. So find some textures you like or draw them. And then once you've done that, we can name this to roof 1, something like that. Or, wall top, something, whatever you'd like. We can then clone this object type. So for now, I will just do two variants, but you could do as many as you'd like. You could do 4 or 5 variants, something like that. So we've got roof 1, roof 2, and then we need to create the front faces. So we can also just clone this object again, drag this down, but instead of 256 by 256, we can set that to 512, so it's longer. And then you just want to change this texture. So I have this texture here, it's just longer and it's also darker, just to add, some depth. Alright, so then you should have something that looks like this, depending on how many actual variants you'd like. So I've also renamed this. I've got roof texture 1 and 2, and then I've got the wall texture 1 and 2. Alright, so next we can head into our event sheet. We can right click, add a group. I'll call this walls for now. Alright, so next right click on walls, and we want to add a local variable. And we can just call this type or seed, something like that. We can keep this as a number, so we can just say type equals 0 for now. And we're going to use this to decide which texture to place. Next we can add an event, we can say system, and we want to add a loop for each of the walls, just like we did with the enemies. We want to say for each wall, and then we want to say system set value. We want to set it to the walls type we just did, so we want to set type, and then we want to put choose brackets, and then this would depend on how many actual variants you have. So for now we have 2, so I could just put 0 1. If you had 3 or 4, you just keep going like this, 3 4. And then on top of this, if you wanted to add some variation to the height of your walls as well, you could actually do that in here. So you could say wall set Z height, and then you could set this to, let's say we make it 16 tall. And then on top of this, you could do plus, and you could type random, and then you'd add some brackets again. And then if you want it just be a slight variation, you could just do something like 0, 1. And that'll just, it'll just be a 1 pixel difference. Alright, great. So that will now actually choose the different type, and then it will also set the height. Next, we just need to say what textures to use when the type exists. So we can add an event, we say system, compare variable, and then we say type equals 2, and so then we want to copy and paste this, so we have, and so if the type is 0 or 1, and then again if you have multiple different variants, you just duplicate this out. Alright, so next let's add an action, and we want to say wall, we want to set the face object, and so for example if we want to set the left face, and then we can now just choose the wall texture, so we have 1 and 2 here, so we'll say wall texture 1 can equal to 0, and wall texture 2 can go to 1, so we can say wall 1, we can paste this out. And then now we just want to set all the different faces, so left and right can be wall texture 1. We can paste it again, the top texture can also be wall 1. Paste again, we can do the same for the bottom. And then lastly for the front face, we just want to now set that the roof texture. So you should have something like that. And then now just duplicate this process for your different ones. So we could copy all of this, paste that in here, and then we just have to set this to texture too. Alright, great, so it should look like this. And then all we need to lastly add is we just need to add an else in between these. So we can add an event, system, else, and just drag this between each of your options. And we just want to select this else, and we want to just drag this above your type 1. And then depending on how many types you would have, you would just duplicate this, and for example, it'd be type 2, type 3, and then you just change the faces to each different variant. Okay, and then finally what we need to do is we just need to make it so that this only gets run on the start of the layout. Otherwise the textures would just keep getting changed and bounce around. So we can drag our walls group to the top. Okay, so next what we can do is we can select all this. And we just want to drag this underneath the on start of layout like this. So now if you select your on start of layout, everything should be highlighted. And we now have the look, so, and then what we can do is we can delete this group now, we don't need this. Because we only want to call this on the start of layout. Okay, so make sure these two different type conditions are underneath your for each wall. And then this should all work now, so we can test this. I've also just added a 2 on these textures so you can see the difference. Okay, great. As you can see, it's now choosing different textures. We have the different heights. Awesome. Alright, great, so let's get the doors working. We're going to right click, insert a 3D shape. We can call this door. And then I want to set the width, the 2 tiles. So it's going to be 64 by 256. Like this. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this out. We can place this in here, and we're going to use this as like our prefab, let's say. And then once we've got this working, we'll then use this again. And then we just want to add an instance variable, and we'll call this cost. We'll add in a behavior, we'll make it a solid, and we can leave it at that for now. I'm just going to flip this way for now, and then what we want to do is we want to insert a new object. And this is going to be our actual collision. So basically, we're going to have a collision so that we can detect when you're on either side of the door. So I'll just make this a green square. I'm going to set this to 256 by 256. I'm just going to drag this out a little bit more. And then also, I'm going to just disable snap to grid for a second. And for now, I'm just going to line this up best I can. Like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Or you can use the align tools. We can then select this and we can just call this door collision. So we've got as door and as door collision. We then want to add a variable. We want to call this on collision. And we want to set this a boolean. We don't want this ticks at the moment. And then we just need to also add a pin behavior. So behaviors pin. Like this. We do want to have the pinned ticks to destroy with the object. And then I'm just going to lock this object for a second. I'm going to select the door, and what we want to do is we want to head over to the left and we want to say container, create a container, and then we want to add the door collision. So what this does now, these are connected in a container, and so now when we go and we spawn one of these objects here, so if I just show you real quick, I'll drag a door on, and we hit play, it now also spawns a collision with it. So that's why we have this over here as like a placeholder, and then now all you have to do is you just need to now get different references of the object, and then you can just position the highlight. We can also unlock all, and we can also just set this collision here. We don't want this to be visible, so we could set not initially visible. Whilst we're here, let's just quickly add the UI element. So we'll insert another 3D object. And on the bottom object here, this is where we'd set the sprite, because we're going to billboard it. I just quickly drew this little, touchscreen image, and then we can just hide every face but the bottom face, like this. We can call this door by UI, something like that. I'll set the Z height to 10, and then we can give this a sign behavior, so it can bounce up and down a little bit. And then we don't want this to be too intense, so we just set this to 2, and then the magnitude can just be 0.5. Also, make sure it's the elevation that's set. Let's also quickly add the door to door by text, so we'll insert an object, text. We'll call this door by text. We'll add the same sign, so we'll go behaviors, sign, and we want this to match the touch UI, so we'll say 2, 0.5. I'll set the initial text to like 100 for now. I'm going to make the text white. You can also change the font if you'd like. So I could use a font like this. This looks a bit better. And I'll just increase the font size a little. We can drag this out, and then we also want to make sure, so what we want to do is we want to head over. I want to align this all to the center. So we can just hover over here, we can say center and center like this. And then same for the origin. Center. Okay, great. So you now should have all the objects needed to make your doors. So let's head back to the event sheet, and we're going to right click, new group, and we'll call this doors. And we'll say player collision is overlapping another object. We'll say door collision. Want to add another condition. Add another condition. System. We want to do this once while it's true. And then want to create the two objects we just added. So we want to system, create object, And so we added a UI, and want to make sure we spawn this on our game layer. And then now here, so now because we've linked the collision and the door together, if we just set this to the door.x and the door.y, that's all we need to do. And it knows which door we're referencing because it's connected to this collision. Let's add another action, system, once again, create object. This time let's do the text, so we'll say text, door by text, game layer again, and this time again, so we can say door.x and door.y. However, we also just want to quickly add, so we can just make it slightly above. So for this, we could just say plus 45 and plus 90 on the y. We also want to set the text, so we can go system, we could say door by text, set text, and then we can just set this text to, so if you want to show like a dollar sign or a pound sign, you could do the dollar sign inside of quotation marks, and then all you need to do is you do the and symbol, and this is how you can just keep adding additional things in here. So you could do dollar sign and then door.cost. So it's going to show a dollar sign, and then it's going to show the cost that we've added to each different door. We can copy and paste this, and then we want to say, so we go back once, and we'll set mesh size, and we'll set this to 2 by 2. Basically what we're going to do right now is we're going to create a mesh, and we're going to use this to simulate the 3D element, so it's going to actually be aligned with the other objects. Okay, then here I've just added the different points we need to add. I think it'll be faster and easier if you just pause the screen here and you just copy these. So pause here now, or also I'll just select these real quick and you can copy and pause. Alright guys, so I think that will just be faster, but basically that's now going to align the positioning, so it's going to look like it's in the 3D space, so it's going to billboard the text object. Okay, so that should all work for now when you collide with the collision. Now let's tell it what to do when we're not colliding, so we can add an event, play collision, we can say is overlapping another object, we want to say the door collision again, but then what we want to do is we want to select this and want to press the I key, so we're going to invert this, so now it's saying is not overlapping the door collision, and then we just want to destroy these two objects, so we can say door by UI, destroy, and the same for the text, door by text, destroy. Alright guys, so let's just quickly head back to our game and we can test this. So we can copy a door. Let's drag it over here. Alright guys, so I'll just drag these doors here for now. And I'll set them both to different costs. So this left one costs 50 and the right one costs 100. And then one thing real quick, you also need to head over to your UI and text elements, and we just need to increase the Z elevation. So the UI we could set to 15 and the text we could set to 20. So now the text will be displayed above the icon and it'll say how much it costs, and then it's got a prompt to say tap the screen. Alright guys, so far now when you hit play, and as you can see when you hover over the door, it now comes up with a prompt, it shows how much it costs. Same for this one over here, if we head over here, it now shows this one costs 50. Alright great, so lastly let's get it so that when you can actually buy and open the doors. Okay, so to get this working, this depends on the style of your game, so if you want to create a mobile game, we're going to be using touch controls. However, you can still achieve the same thing with mouse, you would just use your mouse. But what we're going to do is we're going to set a new object, we're going to use touch, and then over here we're going to say add an event, touch, on tap on, we're going to say on tap object, the door by UI, so if you tap on the door by UI, and then we want to add a condition so that if you actually have enough to buy the door, so we want to right click, add a condition, system, compare two values, and the first value we want to just set this to the actual coins, so the player's coins, and we want to say is it equal or greater than, and then we want to set this to door.cost. And then we just want to now, so we want to take away the amount, so what we'll do is we say add an action, system, we'd set the value, coins, and then we can just set it to coins minus door.cost. We can right click, add a blank sub event, and then we want to say door, and we want to pick the nearest to the player, so we want to say pick nearest, furthest, select nearest, and then we want to say player collision dot x and player collision dot y. So pick the nearest door to the player, and then we're going to say door destroy. So when we click on the icon, if we have enough money, we're going to reduce the coins, and then we're going to destroy the door that we're at. Alright, great, and that should be everything. So let's test this. Alright guys, so this should be it for this video. Our walls are all working, and then we head over to our doors. We can now interact. We get our prompts, it shows the price, and when we click, it now opens the door. Same for this one, we head over, shows the prompt, this one's got a different price, and we can open it. Alright, great, that's it for this one guys. I hope you enjoyed, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.